welcome back to this episode 4 of the Fire and Ice podcast. I am your host, Matt Partridge, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Adamson. How are you doing?
Hello. How are we all? Been a long time since we've been done this last pod, so we thought we'd bring it back.
Yeah, the last one I think was pre-draft with Matt. I think we did a mock draft with Matt. God, I don't even know when the draft was, so that was a long time ago. We got an exciting episode today, talking, sort of previewing the season, the upcoming season, previewing the teams, thoughts, feelings. Right now there's obviously votes going on the WhatsApp group about what people think the end state is going to be, so we'll talk about that as well.
Flying through the votes, that is, currently.
Yeah, any initial thoughts? Excited for the upcoming season?
We all know that I am very much the excitable one. I'm overhyped for what Falcons can deliver, as I am every year. I feel like it's going to be a good year for Atlanta. I feel like it's going to be a very good year for Atlanta, and I feel like it's going to be a good year for those top end fantasy products for Atlanta. I think if you're a Bijan owner like Luke is, I think he is right to be coming in his pants. I think he's going to be quality. With our offensive line, I think Pitts is going to be really solid again, and I think he's going to break out this year. And I think London proved he did enough last year. 30% of passes went to London last year. You know that little fact for you?
He's only 21.
High percentage. He's 21 years old. Well, he's 22 now, but yeah, he's one of the youngest. So I think those three, they're going to be really high products, and I think Falcons are going to be good. We win the division. I'm very confident we win the division. How about you with the Cowboys?
Not so confident. I'm never really that confident on the Cowboys, but we've obviously got the Eagles in our division. They should be Super Bowl favourites really with that team. So they should win our division. I hope we should make playoffs in wildcard. Our team's good enough. It's basically the same team as last year. Obviously we lost Zeke, but Pollard's easily good cover. Brought in Brandon Cooks. Got Gilmore at cornerback. The defense is pretty much exactly the same.
Defense is good. Defense is good.
Yeah, I think we drafted well enough as well. So, I think we should make wild card, but we're not going to win the division with the Eagles. They should beat us twice really this year.
I've got Eagles as winning the whole thing. I think I put it on the group the other day. I think getting Nolan Smith and Carter where they did. I know I kicked off, didn't I, during the real life draft with Carter dropping that far, and we took Bijan, and he looks like he's going to be great. But I loved Carter coming out, and I think he's going to be an absolute dog. All my IDP leagues that I'm in, I've taken Carter. I think he's going to be outstanding. And then for Nolan Smith to drop as far as he did, they've basically got the Georgia defense, which was like one of the best defenses in college in many a year. It's I think that I know you hate the Eagles, but I think they are something to beat this year. And I think I think you can get value as well. I don't even think they're favourites.
No, they're about 8-1, I think. Really, really good value. Considering who have they got to beat? Probably 49ers. You would have thought are going to be up there.
With their injury history, and I know Purdy's obviously shown up for the guy, but I think he's just a system QB. I haven't seen anything special from him, so I can see something going wrong there. I think Eagles are the team to beat for me. Yeah,
lots of interesting stories. Obviously on field in the NFL, we've got some interesting stories probably to talk to fantasy wise. Should we kick off with a team, sort of have a look at it, dig into it?
Let's start off with, if we start off with in order of waiver priority, maybe. So start off with the Mud Dogs, who's got the first waiver priority. That's how I've been doing the polls so far.
Yeah.
So the Mud Dogs, he was voted to come 10th, was it? Let's have a look where Mud Dogs was voted. The league has said that Mud Dogs is coming 9th. 9th for Mud Dogs overall. Above me, yeah. He was doing better than I was. His team, on paper, I think you start off with Jalen Hurts, you're happy with. Tony Pollard has had a huge bump up this year with Zeke going RB1. I'm not a Tony Pollard believer myself, but I can see why people like it. J.K. Dobbins, excellent talent, phenomenal talent, but again, major injury concerns. Garrett Wilson, I think, is most people's favourite for being one of the top offensive players of the year. He's definitely going to be in that conversation, isn't he?
I had him down, obviously, with a bump up with Rodgers. He's going to be better than he was last year, and he was top notch last year. So yeah, I think he's got to be up there, definitely. He's obviously top 5 wide receiver overall, and he's quality. Great player.
So he's got Christian Kirk, who was a stud for me last year. Obviously, he's got Ridley now there to take some shots off him. However, I feel like that could only be a positive. I feel like those corners are going to be now guarding Ridley, and it's going to provide some openness for Kirk. So I feel like that's a relatively decent player to have as your wide receiver 2. Dalton Schultz, tight end, like him. He's playing with a rookie QB who's going to be dumping the ball off all the time. Did it for you guys previously. I think that's a great pick. Treylon Burks, again, another guy that I'm actually a big fan of. Had him in fantasy team last year for a reason. I think he takes a step forward this year. He's one of those players that was high on my draft board, which is pretty much my whole drafting process, was taking second year guys for the bump up for next year, which he fits that perfectly. Sam Howell, questions out for me. I really don't know too much about him at all. And then we're into the nonsense picks. In terms of his bench, a couple of standout players for me. We spoke earlier. Roschon Johnson, I'm very high on. I like Roschon Johnson. I went after him once or twice from AP. And then he's kind of got some bit part players in there as well. I know you kind of, I think you said you quite like A.T. Perry a bit as a rookie.
I've not really seen too much of him, to be honest. Not heard a lot.
Okay, maybe it might have been somebody else. But he's essentially, from my perspective, he's got a solid team. I like the team. I actually wouldn't have voted him in 9th. I think he'll do better than that. And I like the squad. I actually I really do quite. And the more I look at it, I think it's, with anything, it depends on injury history. It depends on what's going to happen in the season. Do you trust J.K. Dobbins or not? I know you're probably out on that, I imagine.
Very out on it. I think this is his last year. I think he's a sort of a glass house, isn't he? He's going to fall over at some point. He's got to do it for me. I haven't seen enough. How long's he been in the league now? Like 3 years? It seems like he's been injured for about 90% of it. He comes back and he has a game, and then it's like, oh, he's off again. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And with the Ravens this year, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more, so he's not going to get the production that he's had previously. So no, not for me.
So if you were to kind of, where do you see this team for Mud Dogs then? Do you see it as something that, do you see it as a rebuilder? Do you see it as a kind of title contender, middle of the road? Where do you kind of feel this team sits?
I see it as a bit of a middle of the road right now. I know AP's put Wilson out there, hasn't he? And I think Pollard's on the trade block. I think he needs to. I can see him holding on to Wilson for a few weeks, waiting for maybe one of the big dogs like Keith, who's probably got a first, doesn't he, to come in and pay. And I think Matt as well probably would pay and get him. So I can see why he's holding on to him. Pollard, if I was Phillips, I'd probably think about getting rid of Pollard. The situation is a bit sketchy for me. I feel like Dallas probably are not going to pay him after this year. I think he was on the
scorned by
tag,
Zeke already.
He? Yeah, I think we tagged him. Yeah, we did in the off season. So he's got one more year, obviously. But I feel like maybe we're going to draft someone next year, someone to come through, and then just use Pollard this year as they've actually said similar to what they were going to do last year. So they had Zeke sort of pushing the ball in on the goal line and use Pollard on the outside quite a bit. I think they said they're going to do the same this year, which means probably Rico Dowdle is going to be, who I've got on my bench right now, is maybe that guy to push him in, or in Dackle, obviously, get the touchdown.
I've really enjoyed, I'm sure other people have noticed it, but if I just skip over to your team super quick, there is a couple of the running backs for Cowboys have been on and off your roster at some hell of a rate. It's
I had
Rico Dowdle.
Malik Davis, because everyone assumed he was going to be the second. He got cut, actually. So in the running back position, we got Pollard, Rico Dowdle, that Deuce Vaughn, who I think Beef's got, and then some random undrafted who's come out of nowhere. I can't remember his name right now, but he's a fullback.
4 times he's been on and off your roster.
I think if Pollard gets... Rico Dowdle's going to have some sort of play. It's not going to be Pollard 100%. Anyway, yeah, so I like Dowdle. He's a good catcher as well.
So you kind of have AP then as a bit of a kind of middle of the road guy. Anything, so you've obviously discussed the fact that you've hinted that you would probably go down to the burning it down sell off your best assets and recoup for next year. But if you were to look at going for it, what sort of moves would you be looking at making if you had this roster?
He's got his first, hasn't he? I mean,
he does.
Yeah, I would have to. Just looking down, has he got wide receiver?
Hasn't got his second after that hilarious trade rate, but yeah.
Yeah, there's just not enough depth really to go for it. I think he needs to make quite a lot of moves. Maybe if he went with 2 QBs and maybe sacked off Sam Howell and somebody paid him a little bit for that. Maybe a couple.
Does have Kenny Pickett on the roster?
Yeah, I like Pickett. I do like Pickett. As I would stick Pickett in and maybe get rid of Howell if he could get a few pieces. It's a bit shaky in quite a few departments. You look at Christian Kirk, he's not going to have the volume as he had last year. He had so much volume last year, it was ridiculous. He's going to be good. Jags are going to be better, but the Ridley acquisition worries me. Then you've got Burks as well, and Hopkins went there. Tannehill, it's a little bit of a worry. Again, he's going to have a jump up, but is it going to be enough? Probably not. And then the bench is a bit shaky. Claypool's awful. He's not going to get any of the ball, is he, at the Bears? Tony, again, he's never glass house. Pucker, 80. Ingram, no, I don't like him. I do like Dylan. I did go after Dylan quite recently.
Would you offer him?
Just a second, straight up second. Thought it was a fair deal, but no dice on that one. The one player I do really, really want to talk about is an undrafted rookie that he's currently got on his taxes, Sean Tucker.
He's flying up, isn't he? Yeah, he's flying up the rankings. Yeah.
So he went undrafted, and I think it was because of medical history. I don't know the full ins and outs of what it was, but he was really good at college. Something came out about his medical history, and he dropped like a stone. He went undrafted, but he's so talented, and he's probably going to be RB2 at the Bucs behind Rashad White.
There's question marks on Rashad White, isn't it? Yeah.
He's definitely got scope to play this year. I'm a bit odd why he's on the taxi, to be honest. I mean, I'd be switching around probably A.T. Perry or someone like that because I don't think he's going to play as much. But that's really probably a good point.
That's probably a good point to really raise again for any of those that do actually listen to the pod. I know you put it on the WhatsApp group, but it is an important one. If your players are on the taxi squad come the first game of the season, they are locked in there. If you then want to take them off the taxi squad into your roster, you have to lose someone off your roster, and nobody can go back on the taxi squad. That's it. It's done. So make sure you're thinking that through correctly, and not because if there's somebody that ends up popping off and you want to play them in your roster, you got to move them, and there's no going back. So something to be aware of.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
So moving on then.
Yeah.
Backfield penetration. Currently up in the rankings.
In the league. Newbie.
Currently looking like he's going to get through to at least 4th in the league voting system so far. Goes for a similar approach that I did in the draft, where he's kind of punted RB. But I think the best win for him, I can't remember what the actual trade was, but he made a trade for, I think it was AJ Brown, wasn't it? He did. Yeah. So he traded AJ Brown for Jordan Love, Zay Flowers, and Boyd. I think it's one of those where I can see it for both reasons. I would rather, in my position, be on Matt's side of the fence with it. But knowing, or at least realising now that Ollie is kind of going for it as such, great trade for him. His now main key wide receivers being Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown. Add in James Conner. Sorry, he's going to be James Conner at running back, who is going to be an absolute workhorse. I can't see who else Marquise Brown ain't getting the ball. There's no one to throw it to him. It's just going to be James Conner, drive after drive after drive. Khalil Herbert is someone I have a soft spot for. Was a dirty bird once upon a time last year. I think he's RB1 at the Bears. Fields obviously does hinder him slightly being a rushing QB, but I like Khalil Herbert. Lamar speaks for himself, and as you said earlier, he's going to be throwing the ball more. Gerald Everett, a bit of a one for me, but it'll do a job. Brandon Ayuk has gone so under the radar in this league. He did last year. He's going to be wide receiver 1 in San Fran probably this year, if not definitely next year. Phenomenal dynasty player. And Daniel Jones kind of showed he's got the rushing legs, and I think he's a decent player to have. Then looking at his bench, Oh God, I've just seen the one that really upsets me, so we won't talk about that. But outside of that, I think there's some options there. I'm not a Samaje Perine believer. I think he's totally past it, but it does give him a bit of depth. But he is weak outside of his starting at RBs. And to be fair, the bench isn't great. The more I look at it, I'm kind of put off the bench. I can see why he's done it though, because he's tried to secure his some form of starter, hasn't he? I assume he'll probably drop Trask. Do you reckon he'll probably get dropped before the season starts?
Yeah, I think Baker probably got that, hasn't he? Well, he's got a really good taxi as well, so some of those players that teams have got on the bench and they've got the rubbish on the taxi, he's got a really, really good taxi though.
Yeah, I can see him probably dropping Trask and maybe bringing up Addison or Richardson, and then maybe him having a look around and seeing what else he can do to maybe bring up the other one if he does really feel like he can go for it this year, or just wait it out and see how Richardson is, I guess.
Yeah, Richardson a funny one, isn't it? Does he leave him on taxi? Because if he leaves him on taxi and someone trades for him, I believe he has to go straight to their taxi. Something weird like that. I can't remember. We're going to have to look back at the rules. But yeah, I can see why he did the Love deal as well now, because with Jackson, Jones and Richardson, you didn't need Love at all. But his starting lineup's wide receivers probably the best.
Yeah, it's the best in the league.
Yeah, Everett. Yeah. We spoke about it before in the past about tight ends. Without that premium, they're a bit meh.
Pointless,
unless you've got Andrews, you've got Kelsey, who are basically wide receivers. It's a bit, who cares? So yeah, I can see why he's just put Everett in there. I do like Jones this year. He's definitely going to be better than he was. He was good last year, but he's going to be good. They obviously paid him in the off season as well. He's obviously weak up running back. Connor, like you said, workhorse, probably run him into the ground, get rid of him next year when he's all beat up. Khalil Herbert, but like you said, with Fields there, does limit him a little bit. It's just the worry is his bench, I think. Like you said, Perine, he was good last year for the Bengals. Is he going to do the same? I don't hate it. It's probably a plug and play, isn't it? If he has Herbert out 1 week, he could put Perine in there, could put Gibson in there. Gibson's a good pass catcher. Obviously got Robinson there to push the ball over the line, but Gibson will get his fair share of touchdowns. Courtland Sutton, I hate Sutton with a passion. What's he still doing there? He's awful. Van der Scanling, again, he gets a few catches. He might get the odd touchdown, but you can't rely on him. KJ Osborne, same situation, and Hurst there. It's a shaky bench, a few injuries and a few bye weeks, and he's going to lose a couple, but with that starting lineup, he should beat a few teams, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I can see the Perine gamble. I can totally see that. I think I'm on record on the pod being a Javonte guy. I had him in his rookie season. Always been a Javonte guy, but I can see why you take that. I can go with the backup RB, and he's going to be fucked and unlikely to play. Somehow Javonte's gone through a miracle recovery to this point, which has probably devalued Perine slightly because we didn't expect him to be back for week 1. But I do think Javonte's not going to be back this year. I think truly, if we look at the other guys and what they've been through, J.K. Dobbins and those sorts, Gus Edwards with these knee injuries, he's not going to be back to true level. I would be amazed if they put him workhorse level. So it does give even more opportunity for Perine. So I can see that being a solid kind of depth piece for him. I get the reasoning. I just think it has diminished his return slightly with Javonte kind of breaking the mould with this injury recovery. But as you said, the taxi squad does look solid. What do you feel about Richardson? Because I feel like, right, I believe in the tape more than anything. I think is kind of my approach rather than the metrics that come out of the combine. Richardson's tape is fucking terrible. It's terrible. And his preseason games are pretty fucking poor, really. And I know it's rookies, blah blah blah. How do you feel about the Richardson thing? Because for me, it kind of it feels like just before the Colts took him during the combine, the hype for Richardson just kept growing and hasn't really stopped. And now in fantasy, he is pretty much seen. I think if you did a rookie draft now, he might go 101 in a rookie draft.
Behind Bijan for me, but he would probably be the first QB off.
Definitely be the first QB, wouldn't he, at the moment?
Yeah. For me, his passing's awful, but for fantasy, that doesn't matter if he's running 97 yards down the field and getting 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's an absolute beast, and he's rapid.
And he's young, really young as well.
So, yeah, I think he could be great, but for the Colts, obviously limits Jonathan Taylor, takes away from Pittman. It's an unknown, and I can see why he's put him on the taxi. I don't think you can start him just yet because he's going to have a few awful games at the start of the season.
It's going to be a wild ride, isn't it? It's just whether or not you've got the bottle. He didn't come round to me in the second round. It was someone I would have eyed up if he came to me. But that's a wild ride you're going to go on there, because I just don't think he's got it. But I think for fantasy, he could be one of those. He's going to break fantasy, I think, on the odd occasion, on the odd game week. It's just going to be insane.
45 points, isn't he?
Yeah.
There's 4 touchdowns or whatever, and 200-yard rushing or something crazy.
So, anything? Same question as I gave it to AP just to finish off. Anything? Would you? I assume you're looking to contend with this roster. Anything you do to kind of improve it if you can?
I think he needs a little more depth, probably. I mean, he could bring some of those taxi players out, but then he's going to have to drop a few. He needs a little bit more depth than me. His starting lineup is up there, isn't it? It's top 3, top 4. Yeah,
just trying
to
make a couple of small trades. Yeah,
injuries. If he gets an injury to Tyreek Hill or AJ Brown, it could fall down pretty quickly if he's got to put in Cortland Sutton.
Yeah,
that's a big drop off.
It's true, especially with Marvin Mims, who's leading the way.
It's a little bit shaky, but he's going to get rid of Trask and he'll pick someone up. I'm sure he's going to stick Addison in there. I would have thought he's half decent. Yeah.
Irish Niners, take us away.
Yeah, so he's traded for Dak Prescott off me. Gave up Jerry Jeudy and what's his name, Hawkinson, in the trade, which I thought was fair enough. Dak's going to throw a load of interceptions. I couldn't watch the Cowboys get intercepted and lose fantasy points at the same time. It's horrible. Happened to me last year, so Shane, you can have that one. CMC Barkley, that's the best running back duo in the league. Fair play. Chase and London, solid. Jamar Chase has probably got MVP quality this year, hasn't he? Like I say, with London, should be a step up from last year. Ridder's a slight concern for me, but you probably know a little bit more about Ridder. Andrews, top 2, tight end. Kenneth Walker, I think, is still going to be quality. I know there's all the talk about Charbonnet coming in and losing touches, but Charbonnet is going to be probably more of a pass catching running back on the outside, whereas Kenneth Walker is going to do what he did last year for me. Derek Carr's a bit of a concern because I think next year he's gone. So that would probably be worrying Shane, and he's probably looking to the future, I guess, in next year's draft to pick up a QB. Obviously
especially with Stafford as well.
Then going down his bench, Stafford, he's gone next year. Trey Lance is a question mark. Is he still going to be on our roster next year? Don't know. Zach Moss, less of the better. Elijah Mitchell, CMC's there. James Cook I do love. I did try and I offered Shane a trade, which was Michael Pittman for James Cook, which I thought was very close. Shane said it was quite close. I think it's a fair deal, considering he needs wide receiver depth and I need running back depth. I do like Cook. I think he's going to be good this year. If he gets the same sort of production that Singletary got, and he's a better running back, I think he's going to be really good this year. The only worry is obviously Allen taking all those touchdowns that he does. But yeah, I'm not sure. I do like Cook. I think he's got a steal there. I think he picked him up in like the 8th round or something. Evans came out today. This is last year, isn't it?
He's in contract talks and they don't want to pay him. Well, they're not paying him. He'll be off.
So that's a couple players. He's lost 3, maybe 4 players he's lost. Richie James came over from KC from the Giants. Haven't heard anything about him at the Chiefs.
No, it's been quite quiet, hasn't it? It's been quite quiet. I think he's had an all right camp, but I think you can't tell with the wide receivers down in Kansas City, though, can you? You just can't tell. Mahomes.
No.
We all thought it last year with losing Hill, and it was like, oh, they're going to go down, and Mahomes just spreads the ball around. I personally wouldn't go near, or I wouldn't want to start any Mahomes targets, just because I just think who do you trust? Yeah.
Kelsey is.
Yeah, sorry, true.
But,
I meant wide receiver. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you never know. One day it's
I think
Scandling, and the next one is Tony, and then it's Richie James.
Could be one of those ones that really annoys you. You can guarantee it's the one week you don't start him, pops off.
Yeah.
You get pissed off by
Yeah,
it. I agree.
Who's next? Peoples-Jones. You hated him last year for that one
Still
game
do.
week.
Still do.
Browns have picked up. Who's it? Elijah Moore.
Yes, they have.
Of the Jets. So what? Peoples-Jones is going down to wide receiver 3. I would have thought, behind Cooper. Wan'Dale Robinson. He's supposed to be all right, isn't he, for the Giants? I don't know a lot about the Giants wide receiver core. Like, it's a bit trash, but.
Yeah, it's not got depth. The one I'm looking forward to returning is what's his fucking name? I always do this. Nope, it'll come back to me. It's this. There's a receiver that's coming off IR for Giants. I've totally blanked on his name. Any idea? No, you haven't got an idea.
No, not Sterling Shepard.
It'll come back to me. But yeah, I think the wide receiver core is pretty trash at Giants, and I mean, Beef would be the one to ask, but everything's going to my man, isn't it? Everything's going to him.
Who's that?
Waller. Everyone's going to Waller.
Oh, right. I did. Yeah, I think Waller's going to be good this year. To be fair, for the Giants.
Waller is the one and only, a league favourite, and Tim's got him. We'll talk about him later. He's then obviously got Jameson Williams on the IR.
Yeah, interesting. Really interesting. What's he out for 4 weeks?
No, it's more than that.
He's out for more than that, wasn't it? Suspension.
Yeah.
I thought it was injured.
I think it's 6.
Yeah. So, who knows?
It doesn't. I can't find it here quickly, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. From the suspension, yeah. A guy both Shane and I were big on last year. I'm off him a bit, I have to admit, after going more and more into tape from college. I am off him a bit more. He had to transfer away to start getting some better starting opportunities. And then had a phenomenal final season. But Mechie, who I'm high on, went toe to toe for him pretty much, but didn't get the draft capital that Jameson Williams got. So I'm not massively in on Jameson Williams as much as I was last year, and I think there's some character issues there. I think that nobody's really talking about. He's had niggling injuries. He had a couple of fights at training camp. He's been done for gambling on the premises. I'd be slightly wary of Jameson Williams, but saying that, he's picked him up for nothing. Yeah,
it was in the Trey Lance trade, wasn't it?
It was.
I think he put over, was it Elijah Moore?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's picked him up for nothing. He can stick him on that injury reserve and see what happens come game week 7. Could be a player for the playoffs for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Taxi squad, there's nothing really to talk about down there, but his starting squad is up there, possibly top 2. The worry for him, I think, is going into next year. So he's already lost his first and second for next year. Just looking down, so he's obviously gambled already.
After. Yeah. He's all in for this year, isn't he?
It's just the worry is Carr's gone, Stafford may be gone, Lance is a question mark, Evans is gone. Half of his team is going to fall apart. But he's got the solid base of Chase in London. They're going to be around for ages, and Kenneth Walker and CMC Barkley around for maybe a year or so more. So, yeah,
so we're competing with Sugar's lineup. We're competing with it, and if we can, we're looking to make some moves for probably a QB.
One of the younger ones.
Yeah.
Because I thought he had his first round, but he doesn't. He's only got a third, doesn't he? So he might be able to pick up a QB in the third. Rookie, I think Jalen Hurts was going around in the third when he came out. So.
But that's you shoot.
You can't really go after anyone either. So.
It was something I discussed with Luke not long. I know, probably a few months back. That, to be fair, is with a roster like Shane's, Luke's, Ollie's, those sorts of rosters. They're not going to be getting the top level QBs in next year's draft. They're just not going to fall to them. They might be able to get, they might hit a diamond in the rough with like a Jalen Hurts, like as you just said. But the realism is that someone like Shane, this is where, I think if I'm Shane, I'm loving it this year. I'm loving it. But in the back of my mind, there is this small panic of, holy fuck, what's going to happen with Dak? What's going to happen with Derek Carr? What's going to happen with Stafford? Trey Lance seemingly is the biggest bust in NFL history for what's gone down. And I'm thinking, I haven't got my first or second rounder this year coming up to take a QB. And then the following year, in 2025, if I'm kind of a middle-of-the-road team still, what am I going to get there? Am I even going to get a QB then? So that's something I think for some people to be aware of. It's why I'm openly kind of wanting to finish in the bottom picks, because I feel like I've got my core team, and I just need some extra pieces that come in the top level talent. Now they're not all home runs. They all can bust. Every player can bust, sure, but you'd like to back the NFL scouts on kind of where they're drafting more than anything. So I think it's just an interesting proposition, especially for one of the teams that we're going to go into. I know he's last, isn't he? But the teams that have given away kind of picks, what does their roster construction look like? Because you've got to be thinking in the future. If you're low on a certain type of player, are you going to get that certain type of player in the future from where you're picking from, etc., etc.?
Yeah, they always talk about with Dynasty sort of 2 or 3 year window. That's sort of what you're looking for. And this team's window, probably for the next 2 years, is pretty good. But yeah, if I was Shane, I'd be very worried about Derek Carr not being anywhere. Stafford retired. Lance possibly not being at the Cowboys if they're going to sack him off. Dak might be around for a few more years, but the Cowboys fans don't like him. I'm surprised he's still there, and I don't think we're going to pay him big bucks. It's a shaky situation, but this year I think he's on his way to the playoffs, and he's got a good chance.
Cool. So if we move over to Tim, we've probably taken too long on these teams, as we always do.
Yeah.
If we move over to Tim, we're looking at Justin Herbert, John Doe Swift, Dameon Pierce, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, Travis Kelce, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, all on the starts. And then on his bench, we got Mac Jones, McLaughlin, who I'm disappointed that Shane didn't get, as that's his surname, Raheem Mostert, Rashad White, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Boyd, Zay Jones, Nicole Hardman, Darren Waller. He's got Jeff Wilson on IR. And then on his bench, he's got Xavier Hutchinson, Zach Evans, Chris Brown. How are you feeling about that squad? How are you feeling about the starting lineup as a first piece?
Love Herbert. Yeah, it's a solid piece. He's going to be around for years to come. Swift is a worry for me. You had him last year, didn't you?
And the year before that.
God knows how many times he irritated you on a Sunday.
I have a signed Swift jersey, thanks to AP, but he is a very, very polarising fantasy player. I feel for Tim on that. That is a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, that 10.85 I think is generous. Considering I think Gainwell's going to be run back one, and then you obviously got Hurts who's going to be running a lot. Swift might not see much of the ball. Dameon Pierce is another worry as well.
Yeah. No draft capital in him either.
No, he was picked up quite late, wasn't he? He was good last year. He got a lot of the ball. And the Texans have said, sorry, you're not up in this time, when they've gone out and got Singletary, so he's not going to see as much of the ball, but they are talking that he's going to be more of a pass catching back than he was last year, because he didn't catch basically any balls. So
you had him last year, didn't
you? Yeah, he was solid enough, but he got a lot of the ball with not a lot of fantasy points. You would have a stellar game, and just because this is PPR league, he wouldn't catch the ball, and you just get about 10 points. So the draft capital worries me as well. They may just bin him off. So that's a worry. Diggs, the situation there's a worry for me. What's come out? Was it Stephen A came out and said Diggs wants to leave, he wants a trade, and then Diggs came out and said that's a load of rubbish. There's no smoke without fire. Something's happened there. He had it last year as well. So he did. There's something now.
He also always lets down as well. Keith and I both had him in playoff runs, and I don't know what it is, but he seemingly just falls apart in the final few game weeks. It happened twice in a row. It's a very frustrating player to have, I have to say, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, he should be better than he is at points. Amari Cooper's solid. He's wide receiver 1. He's always going to get you points. Kelce is top tight end.
Absolute
and
dog,
in PPR league, that's that's a wide receiver 1. Godwin, not much to say about him. Terry McLaurin, I like. obviously we both like Dotson as well, so McLaurin's always going to get you points, but he might not be there next year or the year after, but somebody else will pick him up. He's a good player. In terms of the bench, anyone I like down there? Darren Waller's down there. Any words for Waller?
Is. I tried to go after Darren Waller, as that won't surprise you in any way, shape or form. I think I think Tim's a bit fucked, if I'm honest. For one reason and one reason only. I think he's got two of the best tight ends in the league on his roster.
And if I was him, I'd trade him away. Yeah.
Are you going to start him in the flex? Like, that's a ballsy play if you're going to play him in the flex. So, for me, Tim's got some questions to ask there, and I think he could get, but he's probably better off waiting. If I'm honest, like if the gamble works and Waller is as good as a lot of us think he's going to be, you're better off waiting. Do you want to sell him to a contender against you then, though? That whole question comes up. Yeah, I think that's a difficult one for me, that, because I do think they could be, if we're saying top 3 tight ends this year, I think I'd be inclined to put them. I definitely put those two in top 4.
What's your value on Waller though? Because without the tight end premium, we know tight ends are sort of not worth a lot, are they?
I think if you're a contending roster, I think having the elite at the position takes you over the edge. Because these contending rosters are all going to have good wide receivers. They're all going to have pretty decent running backs. You'd imagine they've got the QBs. So what's setting them apart? And often it's the tight end position. Now, if you're truly contending, you need to have strong in all those other positions prior to having a tight end, because it is the weakest of the lot. But if you have a true contending roster and then you throw in an elite tight end, that for me is what makes the difference. And my fear for Tim is I don't think the rest of the roster is enough for how elite his 2 tight ends, or I believe his 2 tight ends, are going to be. Yeah,
I don't think he's going to get much for tight ends because you don't get a lot for them, but I think getting rid of Waller and getting a piece on the bench is worthwhile. He's obviously had Jeff Wilson on IR, so that's 4 weeks down the trash.
I'd wait. If I'm Tim, yeah, I'm not selling Waller, and I'm waiting, and I'm just knowing that no one else has got him. I'm happy with that, knowing none of the other people I'm contending with has got him. And then if I get a major injury or a certain player, Scary Terry McLaurin isn't popping off because actually Jahan Dotson is the number 1 receiver now, I then look to ship him out for someone that can replace, maybe with an additional thing on top. That's probably what I'd be looking at doing. Yeah,
I think he's got players that are tradable, which
definitely.
And some of the teams that we've looked at before, where you go down, everyone's not really hot on them, but Brandon Cooks I think is tradable to a contender. He's going to be wide receiver 2 this year, the Cowboys.
Mostert, running back 1 currently. Rashad White, running back 1 currently. Zay Jones and probably Mecole Hardman are probably the only 2 on his bench that I'd be indifferent on, but
Yeah, so there's a few pieces that he can definitely move about if he did want to shoot up there. They wouldn't take much.
No.
Yeah, like it.
Nice, Tim. I think you're going to be in and around it anyway. The Bengler Dom. Don't know why he's still calling him Bengler Donk. It didn't work out last year. It's not going to work out this year. On his main roster, we've got Cousins, Eckler, Jacobs, Jefferson, Adams, Ingram, Lockett, Goff. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts?
It's strong. He's obviously gone back to Jacobs and Jefferson, who paid him off last year big time.
Single-handedly carried his team.
Yeah. If they're going to do the same this year, probably. Cousins at QB is a bit of a worry, and Goff, AP loves Goff, but again, that's a bit of a worry. Those 2 might not be around too much longer. Lockett, he is wide receiver 2, probably leaning on 3.
Wide receiver 3, yeah.
And he's quite old as well, so he's probably going to be gone. It's good. It's good, but I don't know if there's any depth on the bench, which worries me.
I think that's the point for me. That was when we had the banter this afternoon of the teams coming where, and obviously we've had a playoff with the Family Bowl. For me, that's what I'm taking in consideration is there's going to be injuries on these teams. There's going to be. And especially on these teams that have more of like the vets. they're more inclined in theory to get injuries, and I can see that happening. And then when that happens, I'm looking at Bengaldom's team. I do think he's higher than where the league's consensus has projected him, but I'm not seeing anything there. Like Zach Ertz, come on now, fucking hell. There's nothing of interest on his taxi squad. He's retained Justin Shorter on IR. It's not for me. There's not like Aaron Jones. Like he could be out of the league next year. By all talks, Green Bay were looking to get Jonathan Taylor in. So if they're looking at doing that, it's got to tell you there's something not quite right, or it's coming to the end of it. Brian Robinson, I do like. He's a player I drafted, but he's a running back 2. He's not shown anything more than that at this stage. Josh Reynolds, like really. I do like Van Jefferson a bit, and especially with Kupp again. I don't trust that injury issue. Van Jefferson is someone I went after just not long after the draft, and I think Stafford, while he remains healthy, can feed Van Jefferson as well.
Yeah, Jefferson's a great piece to having a perfect, especially with Kupp, his injury. I think he's going to be on and off all year.
Yeah,
that's a big worry about one for me. Van Jefferson's good enough as long as his injuries stay away, because I think he was pretty injured last year. He's a good piece. What do you feel about Hopkins in there?
Yeah, I'm just not into these. Like, what is he now? 31, 32, 31. He's 31 years old. Yeah. Like 10th year in the league. 10th year in the league. He's going to have a good season. Like, I don't doubt that he's going to have an all right season. He's a quality player. He showed it for you last year when he kind of came back and played really well. Like, I don't doubt the quality. What I really doubt is A, I'm not massively sold on the QB play, and B, I don't think the team's that strong either, really. And I just don't see him, like, for a dynasty team. Like, where's he going to be? Like, what was the contract he signed? Was it 2 years? Was it just a year?
I want to say it's just a year, isn't it? I'd be surprised they paid him more than a year, but
it might. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. But I'm trying to quick look here. I'm not seeing anything that shouts out. It's not a play for me. I've never had him on any team I've ever done, and I won't be starting anytime soon.
Yeah, I think this is another team that you look at it this year, and if you had a redraft, you go, that's great.
Agreed.
But then you look down again when you're projecting next year and the year after, and you go, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Cousins, could be no one there. Like you said, Jones, don't know who Evan Hull is, Charlie Jones, they could be gone. Hopkins is probably likely out of the. Zach Ertz has got. That's half the team.
I'm currently
Adams. There's a lot of Tyler Lockett. There's a lot of old guys in there. I think England got paid off, didn't he, 4 years or whatever. But there's a lot of guys in there that a year or 2 years down the line, if you don't keep looking at this team and start making plays for pieces and picking up the odd young guy, it could be, up there to dead last. I've just done a super quick, so I may be off by 1 or 2, but I've just looked at his starters and bench players, and of both starters and bench, there are 3 people under the age of 24. Yeah, like that would scare the shit out of me. Yeah, that would scare the shit out of me. You can see what Dan's done. He's gone after the vets. He's gone after the players that he knows that are going to get him points. Gone for it. Which if you can get the ring, you got the ring, haven't you? Yeah. And if he wins it this year, fair play to him. And if he sacks off a load of them and starts rebuilding, fair play to him. But we'll see what happens on that. There's something you said, didn't you? I don't think it was on a pod or anything, but it resonated with me. Of once if you win the ring, you win the ring. It's then done, isn't it? Like, you can worry about the rest in the future, and you don't know. Like, we're all expecting, for example, Bijan to be very good for at least the next 3 years, right? As a minimum. Running backs, we know lifespan's less. There could be a drop off very easily after around year 3, year 4. He could be an outlier like Kamara, but we don't know that. If we're saying on the basis he's going to be good for the next 3 years, potentially 4, and then he goes and gets injured in week 1, does his ACL, and we have a J.K. Dobbins situation again, and is in on all the time.
Like, you can't guarantee what's coming up for the future at all in fantasy, can you? So sometimes you are better off just going for it, get those vets in, and go win it now, I guess, which is kind of what Keith's approach, I think, was.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL moves really, really fast. You have to keep up with it, don't you? I mean, we saw last year. You probably looked at Zeke last year and you were like, yeah, decent player for this year. And now you look at it, he's worthless. He's worthless.
Do you know what a great example for that is? Is Tyler Algier.
Yeah,
he had low draft stock, so the team aren't committed to him, and he comes up behind a phenomenal line, and he looks amazing. He looks amazing last year, but the team aren't invested in him, and so what comes along? Literally the following draft, they pick up Bijan, one of the best prospects at running back for a number of years, and now Tyler Algier, like, he's not talked about at all, is he?
No.
You know, and that's the problem, as you say. It moves so fast. So in terms of Bengler Dom, you're happy with are you happy with where the league consensus has him picked for finishing, or are you kind of expecting a bit higher? 6th, yeah.
I can see him going higher, to be fair. Everyone loves Bengler Dom, don't they? I love Bengler Dom. He's a cracking laugh. He puts stuff on the WhatsApp and everything. He keeps up to date, and I think he's the fan favourite. And
definitely
if I'm not in the playoff and he's in the playoffs, I'll be waving the Bengler Dom flag. So it's a good team. If he comes up against me, I hope they don't perform. But he's going to make playoffs, and I think he could make a run.
Agreed. Very nice. So moving swiftly on then, we got Olave to Donk. I'm going to fly through this one for you. Josh Allen, Derek Henry, Travis Etienne, captain Chris Olave, Mike Williams, Dallas Goedert, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Thomas on the bench, Gardner Minshew, Zeke, Jamal Williams, Spiller, Samuel, Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore, Rashid Shaheed, Dawson Knox, Cole Kmet. On his IR, obviously some big players on his IR being Alvin Kamara and Kyler Murray, and then a taxi squad of Thompson, Robinson, Wicks and Miller. Super quick thoughts, feelings on that roster. Obviously, I think he's had a bit of a surprise where the league consensus has him coming in 11th. How do you see it?
I don't think he should finish that low because his team's good enough, and he was drafting really, really well, and obviously he had a few too many beers and drafted John Beatty, and that didn't help. But Josh Allen, solid. He's going to be there for years and years and years. Henry's going to be good this year, and he's probably going to be off. Etienne's got a couple of years. Olave looks top quality.
Yeah.
So really, really good players in there. He's got a few good pieces on the bench as well. Marquise Brown's wide receiver 1. Obviously, the Cardinals aren't going to be great, but I do like Brown. He's young enough as well. I think 26? Yeah. So they'll probably give him another contract or he'll go elsewhere. I do like Shaheed as well. Tried to trade for him a few times. Kyler Murray, as long as he comes back, he's a great little piece to slot in there. And then he's got Kendra Miller down there as well. He's a great little player.
Yeah, he looks good,
especially with Kamara's situation, and I don't know what his contract is, but Kamara's going to be gone shortly, possibly after this year. So Kendra Miller's going to be the Saints' number 1, so he's going to love that. So I think it's a great little player, great little team, but there's just a few question marks around players like Michael Thomas. Haven't seen it in the last couple of years. Are we going to see it again this year? Not sure. Zeke is going to get a few plays, but he's obviously not the man anymore. Gardner Minshew's basically 0 now that Robinson's there. It's good enough. He's got a lot of tight ends. Just noticed that. Dawson Knox and Cole Kmet, as well as Dallas Goedert. Not sure what the thinking is there, but it's good enough to win games. I think the consensus for putting him down there is probably because of his lack of knowledge.
Is it? I don't know. I've got a lack of. I would say lack of bench and depth is my concern. I think if Saints have an off day, I think he's in problems. His first few picks he's got there, I love Josh Allen. Derek Henry can be solid. Travis Etienne, I'm a fan of, although I think Bigsby is going to eat into a little bit. Olave, I think, could be one of the best receivers for Dynasty. Mike Williams, I'm not a believer in. Dallas Goedert, tight end, I'm not too fussed on. And then it kind of dies. Then you got Juju, Michael Thomas, Jamal Williams, Spiller. Like, there's a lot that I'm not concerned. I don't like at all. If I'm Will, I'm probably going balls to the wall, and I'm wanting to make some big changes where I can. I think that's kind of what my approach would be. I know I've got a good core of players, and I'm probably thinking, what can I bundle together to really improve my top level bench, my top level starting squad.
Yeah, there's a few players that you could, like Marquise Brown is a perfect example. I'd have him all day. I'd pay quite handsomely to have Marquise Brown on there, even though they're going to be bad this year. Even Shahid as well. And Kendra Miller, I know you've been after him, I've been after him as well, because the future looks bright there. So, and Kyler Murray as well. There's a few players that he can trade about to make this team better. Obviously, he likes watching the Saints, so when the Saints score, he's basically got the points. The concern is going to be when the Saints don't score. He's going to have to be hoping Derrick Henry gets 40 points or Josh Allen gets 40 to win it. But that's how he set it up. There's a few things he can do if he wants, but we know he doesn't trade, so I guess it will just be the same.
Say peaceful. That's say peaceful. Falcon flops moving ahead as my child has started crying. Pat Mahomes, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Cooper Kupp, T Higgins, George Kittle, Keenan Allen and Geno Smith. On the bench, Rashard Penny, Damian Harris, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard, Calvin Ridley, who I'm so high on. I think that's to have him on his bench. I think is move him into the roster. Like, just do it. He's going to be phenomenal. Alan Lazard, Hunter Renfrow, Rashad Bateman, Sky Moore and Njoku. And he hasn't got any on IR, and he's only got one player on taxi who somehow is actually seemingly
he's quite good,
getting great reports out of
out
of camp in Trey Palmer. So my general take on this for the flops is I would have quite a lot of concern in regards to some of my big name key assets, which I know he loves. Cooper Kupp would really worry me. I think Kittle, wild take, I think Kittle's on the decline. I'm going to say it now. And I know it's a wild take, but I think he's on the decline. Keenan Allen, he struggled heavily last year with a hamstring. I had him and Matt had him. Matt had him. I had him the year before. And I tried getting him repeatedly and he kept not selling him to me. And then I think he wished he did in the end because he just barely played any games. Allen's at that age now, he's 31 years old, where he's going to struggle. If he has any small knocks, he's going to struggle again. Jonathan Taylor, who knows what's going on with the ankle there? I've drafted him in quite a few best ball teams, but I'm a bit worried about that because not getting that trade over the line and the injury, like there is an ankle problem, there's not an ankle problem, that would worry me. So I think my overall take is I think the team is very solid for a win now. But I would have major depth concerns for what if some of these slightly banged up vets get a bit more banged up. That would be my major concern. However, I do, as I said at the intro bit, like Calvin Ridley, I think he's going to be, which is comical for how abusive he was to Calvin Ridley, how unnecessarily abusive he was towards him. I think he's going to be. He's my top pick. Aaron asked me for a question about the redraft not long ago, and I said I've got Ridley in my top 5 receivers for this year.
Yeah, I like Ridley as well. I totally agree with everything you said there as well. The team looks solid this year. Again, it's one of those question marks for next year. Like you said, Dalvin Cook, Mixon, sort of aging, Cooper Kupp on the decline probably. Bit of a concern with the hamstring and the situation as well. If Stafford goes, McVay goes and Donald goes, that team falls apart. Kupp's not going to want to stay around, is he? Sort of, even if they get Caleb Williams, I don't think Kupp's going to want to stay around and wait for that. Keenan Allen, what's he now, 31?
Keenan Allen's 31, but Kupp's 30.
Yeah, so Keenan Allen could be off, especially when they got Quentin Johnson in there. Rashard Penny, another glass house. Is he even going to see any ball at Philly? Not sure. I love Ridley, but there's a few question marks on the bench, like you said. Keep's had a few injuries already. If you look at it, with Taylor, he's got an adequate replacement in Smashing and Cook. And if, like you say, if Keenan Allen goes down with another injury, you put in Calvin Ridley. It's perfect. Going forward, he's got his first round, second round, third round.
He's got. I'd
probably like to see him put a few more on the taxi if that was me, I would maybe be getting rid of, I don't know, Lazard or something like that, and getting a few rookies and just trying to shove them down there, because there's a few out there that are half decent.
For me, and I've said this to Keith, so it won't come as a surprise to him. For me, if I'm Keith's team here, I'm not being scared of it. I'm just going, right, I'm full fucking committal. I've got the squad around me to go for it. Let's fucking go for it. Let's add the pieces I need to add to go for it. If it means I have to go to Phillips and get Wilson off him and give him my first plus, some bench piece or whatever it may be, I'm doing that all day long. I'm doing it because then I've got him then. He's a young piece and he's in my starting lineup and I'm loving it. I don't know why he wouldn't do it. That's the one thing for Keith's team. Like he had a conversation. He said he wants to retain all his picks because he's got an aging team and he needs some young guys. Go win it now. Go win the fucking Super Bowl. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is miss out on it by 4 points because you played Keenan Allen, who's got injured mid in the Super Bowl, when you could have had Garrett Wilson or someone that was producing. For me, Fogle Flops is a key. Go win it now. You've already committed to what you've committed. Do it. Go win it, and then lord it over everyone else. Probably myself the most, that you've got the Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, I mean, he's not playing Ridley at the moment. If he sent Ridley in the first for Garrett Wilson, I think AP would snap his hand off.
I wouldn't do that myself, but yeah, I'd much rather, if someone offers me Calvin Ridley in a first, they can have knocking my virginity again. I tell you.
Well, yeah, that's how I feel on Wilson. Anyway, moving on. What we at?
So we're on to you.
We'll be quick on this one.
We will, yeah. Joe Burrow, Jahmyr Gibbs, Miles Sanders, Debo, Pittman, Hawk, Pacheco, Watson. Nasty bloke getting Watson. That's really bad form. Joshua Dobbs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Rico Dowdle, Tyjae Spears, Michael Wilson, Jacoby Myers, Jerry Jeudy, Gabe Davis, Justin Ross, and Chig Okonkwo. On the taxi squad, you've got Tillman. I can never say his name, but so I'm just going to go Israel, and Jalen. So I'll give a breakdown, I guess, for your team, and then we can get kind of your feelings on it. You declared early, LSU fan, you were going to go with Burrow, get it, like the pick early on, had to do it. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those players, a bit like Richardson. He's gained more and more hype as we've kind of gone along. So I think you've got to be loving with that. Sanders, I picked him up in a 32-team real league, which was, I'm playing as the Falcons, and I picked him up from the Panthers because I think he's going to be a bit of a workhorse in there. So I do like that pick. Debo, he's that versatility, utility knife guy. I wouldn't want him as my wide receiver one personally, but I can kind of see it. Pittman, yeah, all right, no, not for me. Hockenson, Pacheco, and then Watson. I think people will have forgotten how good he is, as much as he's a prick. And your bench is steady enough. I love Tyjae Spears. I would be a bit worried if I'm you about his about the fact that he's apparently got like no ACL or something like that. He's like his knees haven't got any stability. But his yards per carry were quality in the preseason. He looked really, really good. I think your Jerry Jeudy pickup is solid. I think he, as long as he can actually stay and get healthy, is a solid player to have. And I'm just looking for him. There he is. Obviously, still devastated that you've got Justin Ross after I called him out on the podcast a number of podcasts ago. For me, my kind of feelings on your team is you're right in that middle of contender, pretender, like you're right in the middle of it.
Pretender, yeah.
Like you could, if the season comes along and comes and goes, and you end up winning the thing, I would kind of go, yeah, I get it, but then I could also see the complete other side where season comes along and you completely are terrible. I go, yeah, I can see that as well. I think your team needs an RB, and I think if you can get if you can get someone who is a solid flex option, I think you can be in a position where you could confidently make playoffs, and then the playoffs are a gamble. The skill in fantasy, what people forget, and what maybe they don't understand, is the skill in fantasy is getting to the playoffs. Playoffs is a gamble. Anything can happen at playoffs, but getting to the playoffs is the skill. and I think that team can get there with maybe one, two changes.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of teams just on the playoffs out there that they think it's automatic. I've got maybe 4 teams out there who are like, I'm in the playoffs. I've got a chance. They sat back, don't need to do any trades, fine. But like you say, yeah, get into the playoffs. I think if I get to the playoffs, I'm sneaking in. It's not good enough to win enough games to get through.
But that's what happens, isn't it? Like pretty much every year we've played fantasy, the team that's sneaked into the playoffs has won it.
Yeah, because it is a gamble, like you say. I mean, I've set this team up to get points, and that's usually the way I do fantasy. They'll get 110 points probably regularly. They're going to get a low of 100, maybe a top of 120. They're not going to get the max 150, 140 points that some of the other teams are, but they're not going to get the sort of 80 points. It's also been set up in the future in mind. We spoke about a lot of the players that are probably going to be rolling off after the next year or two. You look down here and you go, Gibbs has probably got 5 years, as long as he doesn't get injured. Miles Sanders had a contract, I think it was, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Debo's probably the one. We spoke about Ayuk earlier that I think maybe he could roll off. He's been beat up a little bit. Pittman, I think he's in his contract year now. I don't think the Colts will pay him, so somebody else probably will. Hockenson got a 4-year deal. Pacheco was a rookie as well, so he got another couple of years. Watson got a 4-year deal last year. Spears,
Pacheco
rookie.
Similar to Tyler Algier, I will say Pacheco hasn't got the draft capital behind him.
Yeah,
does that worry you at all?
Well, the Chiefs don't really. Yeah, it is a little worry. I wouldn't have him in flex if Judy was fully fit.
Makes sense.
I'd have Pittman, Judy, and Debo probably in the flex. It's sense. Just because Judy's a bit banged up, isn't he? But one player I'm really, really hot on, and you're going to hate this, is Michael Wilson. Because Shane drafted him, he dropped him, and it was the whole debacle of should I use my waiver, should I not use my waiver. I forgot I used my waiver and I picked up Michael Wilson, but he has just kept on growing. Shall we
explain to the league what actually happened there? Because not all of them know.
I told you to use
happened.
him. This is what I'm going to say.
We were on the golf course. I was ahead of Mark in the waiver priority, and I was debating because I really liked Michael Wilson. I was like, do I use it? Do I not use it? And then Mark played his mind games with me. I was like, just use it, yeah. Knowing that I would then not use it because he knows what I'm like.
Sure.
And then go to look to pick him up after the waivers have expired. And I'm like, it won't work. It won't work, Mark. And he's like, what? What won't work? Oh, it's because on your fucking bench, is it? Oh, yeah, prick.
I forgot I did that. But at the time, he was nothing. But Wilson's a big guy. I think he's 6'2". Looking at the other receivers on the Cardinals, it was Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch.
There's not much there, yeah.
Marquise Brown's a small guy. He's the only tall guy there, except probably the tight ends like Zach Ertz. He's half decent. So yeah, I love that. Jacoby Myers again. He got a contract. Judy will get a contract. Gabe Davis with the Diggs situation. Is he going to be stepping? I like the team for future.
I don't like Gabe Davis.
Superstars.
I will say
there's
that.
No superstars.
I would say Gabe Davis. I think is weak. I think he's shit. I think he's absolute dog shit.
He's underrated. He's
dog shit. I'm going to go. He's an absolute dog shit.
There's a couple of shaky ones in there. Obviously, Dobbs I put in just in case Burrow gets injured or he's not going to play, but it looks like he's going to play now. Hopefully if Dobbs plays, we don't even know if Dobbs is going to play. It might be Clayton Tune. Edwards-Helaire, they didn't pick up his 5th option, so he may be going somewhere else. Someone's going to give him a rubbishy little contract to be their running back 2 or 3. Rico Dowdle's going to be running back 2 for the Cowboys, and he's actually going to get a bit of work. And then Jalen Hyatt, deep ball threat for the Giants, quite like that. I can sit him there all year. Tillman's been half decent. Not too bad. It's not a team that's going to win this year. It's probably not a team that's going to win next year. It's middle of the road, and I need to make that decision probably 4 or 5 games in whether I want to use a first and get rid of some of these players and try and get like an elite player with a load of garbage around it.
That was going to be my question.
Or I stick with it and then go into middle of the road where I've got a 5th or a 6th pick in the first round and then pick up a half decent receiver, shove him in. We'll see. Well, I'm sort of now I'm just going to sit still, except for going for James Cook or something. wait 4 or 5 games in, see what's happening. There might be a few injuries. There might be some teams out there who get a bit worried about a few of their players, and try and work my way through that.
Nice. So moving down, we're almost there. We get to. I hate this name. I'm sticking with Beefy Giants. We're on Beefy Giants. He's got in Ridder We Trust, Cam Akers, Mattson, Amara, Devonta Smith, Doltich, Moore, Pickens, and on the bench we got Stetson Bennett, the boy. I'll tell you what, he's gonna be better than people think. Everyone's always underrated him. Go on, Stetson. He ain't probably gonna have a really fucking go on, Stetson. Aidan O'Connell, who's had a good camp. Mike White, Eric Gray, Jerome Ford, Ty Chandler, Deuce Vaughan, Elijah Moore, Tyler Scott. IR, Jalen Woods, Hendon Hooker. I do not know why he's got Hendon Hooker on there. Taxi Squad, Rishi Rice, Sam Laporta, who is getting a lot of hype again, and Jason Brownlee. For me, it's been voted the worst team in the league. For me, it is the worst team in the league. I love what he's tried to do in the draft. He has got a shit ton of picks, which we should mention. He's got his own first, he's got Shane's first, he's got Luke Mann's first, he's got Shane's second, he's got Luke Mann's 2025 second, he's got Shane's 2025 third. Like, I respect that a lot. He's done well with the picks, and I get that. I think what he's gutted about is that he's missed on the Trey Lance. I think that's hurt him a lot, because he would have picked him. Can't remember. I assume it would have been around round 5-6. So that's hurt him. And I also feel like where a number of the teams kind of went with an early take a lot of QBs approach. I know I obviously took 3 QBs in the first 3 rounds. I think that put him a bit on tilt, and I think that kind of upset the apple cart a bit of what he was trying to do. And I think he's seriously hindered for this year. I would be amazed if this team isn't coming 12th to 10th. He's definitely getting one of the top 3 picks for me. I think he's got some strong receivers. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's phenomenal. Devonta Smith, really, really good player. DJ Moore, he's obviously recently got off Shane. I think he could prove the doubters wrong from his previous years. I think he could go at it now. But outside of that, I'm looking at Mattson, which I'm not a believer of, I'm afraid. Akers with the injury and everything else, and how he was pretty much almost given off the team for free last year, I'm not a believer of. I think Ridder can do a job. I think he'll just be steady Eddie. I don't think he's ever going to get you big points, but he'll be a steady Eddie for you. And George Pickens could be in and amongst it, but there is nothing there apart from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and apart from Amon-Ra St. Brown, nothing's elite. Devonta Smith is very, very good. Dolchich is okay, and then on the bench, there's just nothing. There's nothing I like.
Yeah, I think that's the concern. Is the starting 11 is not great, but the bench is very bad. You can't play Stetson Bennett, Aidan O'Connell, Mike White, Gray, Deuce Vaughan, probably Tyler Scott. You can't play, 8 of the 10 bench players if you wanted to, and if you get an injury, it's game over. But he's done well in picking up all those picks, because future, he could be picking Caleb Williams, and then you might get a receiver or 2 receivers, and you look at his team next year and you go, bloody hell, that's top notch. So
that was exactly my piece. That was going to be and it's an approach I've gone for as well. So he's got those 3 firsts, right? Let's say then he retains Amon-Ra St. Brown, he retains Devonta Smith, he retains Greg Doltich and George Pickens. He then builds with those first 3 round picks at RB, gets Caleb Williams in his QB, Ridder goes into flex, and then gets somebody else in. All of a sudden, that team, Laporta maybe pops off, comes in at tight end. All of a sudden, for year 2, you're actually thinking, fucking hell, that team's competing.
Yeah.
If the Caleb Williams story is as good as he's meant to be, and if you're going to, generally, I think if we get any, there's 2 rookie running backs that I've done a lot of reading about that will go end of first, second round. If he gets one of them, they'll the roster will change dramatically. So I think that's what he's living off now, is he's keeping those core receivers, which will be strong for him, and then build on that with the rookie picks. And it's a great way to go. It's the same sort of build that I've gone for.
Yeah, he's keeping those young guys, and building with more young guys. But this year it's going to be a bit of a sad tale of looking at his fantasy team probably losing most weeks. He might get the odd win, but next year, it's going to look a different story.
Definitely. Should we move it quickly on to your brother?
Yep.
If you want to shoot us through.
So Justin Fields, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, DK Metcalf, Pat Fryermuth, David Montgomery, Jordan Love, and then you go down to bench: Tannehill, Rodgers, McKinnon, Deion Jackson, Algier, Gallup, Collins, Dubes, Demario Douglas, Jake Ferguson.
Had a great camp.
Nobody on injury reserve, and the taxi squad is Zach Charbonnet, Quentin Johnson, and Zay Flowers. Probably the best taxi squad I've seen, I think. Thoughts?
I think the taxi squad is the best in the league. There has been, although there's a lot of negativity around Quentin Johnson. I pull no punches. I've gone after Quentin Johnson, I think 3 times from Matt. He's not had any interest, but I've now tempered my love for going after him because reports are pretty shit. Now you can't judge it all on that, but he's not stepping up this year. I think he's staying on the taxi squad from a fantasy perspective. But long term, you'd expect him to be really good, playing with a phenomenal QB. Zay Flowers is the complete opposite to Quentin Johnson. He's got so much hype through pre-season, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't end up in Matt's starting lineup come maybe middle of the season. The bench, relatively strong. I think it does an all right job of being strong at depth, and gives him lots of other options. His main problem is what we've touched on for many other teams, is what's going on at. Oh, no, to be fair, it's not that bad. We'll see what Jordan Love is, won't we? We'll see what Jordan Love is. If Jordan Love isn't the guy, there's concerns over QB long term for him, for that flex position. Justin Fields is my candidate for MVP, so I think he'll be really, really good. But there's concerns depth wise there. Najee, he's gone so many Steelers. He's got Najee, Deion Johnson, and Pat Fryermuth in the starting lineup. That was terrifying me. That would really terrify me.
Yeah. I think Luke mentioned it earlier, didn't he? And I think that's why he voted him so low. If the Steelers don't have a great season, it's a worry, because those are the 3 main pieces of the offense. So Pickett, obviously. I
don't think Najee's the guy. If you look back at reporting for Najee when he came out of college, it was all on the hype wasn't around Najee as an athlete, because he's quite slow. He's quite immobile. The hype over Najee was mainly over the position he was going to, the situation he was going to in the Steelers, being that workhorse back, that tugboat of a player who's just going to boom, boom, boom constantly. And I think Warren showed him up. I really do think Warren showed him up. Now, Warren's got no draft capital in him, but I think unless Najee stays super healthy and somehow comes back from a really downtrodden year last year, I think Warren's going to eat away at his snaps, and I wouldn't be surprised if come the end of the season Warren is RB1. I truly believe that. I had Harris last year and I was so disappointed. I watched quite a few of the games. He just looks slow. He's like a tugboat. And it could just be the injury. But he's not for me. Deontay Johnson, also a guy I had last year. Traded him away.
Hated him, didn't you?
He's a volume player. That's why I drafted him, because he's phenomenal. Gets so much phenomenal volume, but he had a major issue with the drops. Now he's probably resolved that, and if he's gone back to the normal volume, he's going to be a good pick. But that's a big question mark for me, and it worries me. Pat Fryermuth, I do like the actual opposite take of what Luke's saying. I do like Pat Fryermuth. I think that's a good tight end to have, and I've got no issues with that. But those 2 in Najee and Deontay would be major worries for me. DK Metcalf, Who knows what's going to happen? He's the wide receiver 1 there, but I'm not a Geno believer. I get it. He's a Seahawks fan, so I get it. But I don't believe. I think he was a flash in the pan, Geno. Like, how long's he been in the league? 10 years, and he's had one good season.
Long time. Yeah.
Like, I'm not having it. Bring in JSN. Tyler Lockett's still going to want feeding. I'm not sold on DK. David Montgomery, I do like. However, I thought that was some shrewd business by Matt. He's the puppet master. Matt is. I've said this before. He goes under the radar, but he's puppet mastering everyone. And I think that's one of the best trades we've seen so far for an individual person, was him getting David Montgomery. That goal line work, he's going to smash it. And if I just pull up the trade, what he shipped off, he got Gallup, Metcalf and Montgomery for Cooper, Boyd, Wilson, Brown, 2024 third. For me, he's laughing. He's laughing in that. There's a lot of nothing there for some relatively starting products. And I do like Montgomery. I don't think he's a long-term player that you're going to love long-term, but if he wants to go for it this year, I don't think he has to do too much. And I would keep Montgomery in that squad. I can see him doing exactly what I got so fucked off with Swift last year, to Gibbs.
Yeah, no, I like the team. I think it should make playoffs. I
agree.
I mean, everyone voted it quite low, and I wasn't a part of that. I think it's good enough to make playoffs. He's got the taxi score,
what
which
number's
worries
playoffs again?
me.
Sorry, what number is playoffs?
6, 1 to 6.
Okay, no, I don't think he makes playoffs. I think he comes 7, but yeah.
I'm just looking at the taxi squad and wondering why he's got Demario Douglas in the team. He's probably playing a game there. Someone's probably after Quentin Johnson, and he's like, he's on a taxi and trying to do something. But I'd put Zay Flowers in the team, leave Quentin, maybe Charbonnet down there. He doesn't have any rookies they can actually put in. Zay Flowers been popping off apparently for the Ravens. He's been torching everyone.
Supposedly,
don't know whether it's Odell looking crap or Zay looking great.
No, Odell's had good camp report. Odell's had good camp report, which makes me even more think that Zay is that guy.
Yeah, so Zay Flowers could be good this year. And this team going into next year, Zay Flowers is decent. Charbonnet has a good year. A couple of the players leave, but he's got the picks as well. He's got Luke second, and he's got your third. He obviously lost his third, but he's got another third, so he's got the picks as well. And if he looks like he's got a chance of maybe sneaking playoffs or getting higher, he'll probably use that first. And I know he did go after Garrett Wilson as well. And if you put Garrett Wilson instead of Deontay Johnson there and say got rid of that first and Zay Flowers or Quentin Johnson, you'd look at that team a lot differently.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Moving swiftly on, 2 to go. Tua girls, 1 cup. Starting up with Tua. Then Bijan, Stevenson, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Dalton Kincaid, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Russell Wilson. And on the bench, he's got Brock Purdy, Jonathan Foreman, Breece Hall, Devon A-Chain, Jonathan Mingo, Thielen, Campbell, Mooney, Raheem Jarrett, Mike Gesicki, and no one on IR. And then taxi squad has got Luke Schoonemaker, Parker Washington, and Keyshawn Boutte. What do you feel about the starting roster?
It's young. It's very young. And it's got loads of potential. I mean, if I was sitting there with that team, I'd be loving it. The worry is the QBs. Tua could be retired if he gets concussed again. He nearly went out, didn't he? Yeah, Russell Wilson. Obviously got Sean Payton there at the Broncos this year, so he could be a different player, but he looked awful. He did look awful. He's got Brock Purdy, and he had a great win with that, because I think everyone thought maybe Lance was going to be the guy. Just trying to look now where he picked him up. Round 12 or 12, right at the end of round 12. That's a great pickup. Brock Purdy's not going to get you loads of touchdowns and runs, but he's throwing to a top offense.
He's a steady Eddie, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to get you points. I'd be putting Purdy in instead of Wilson in there, but Bijan, top. He's running about 1 dynasty. CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver. Jalen Waddle is another top 10 wide receiver. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be something in the future, definitely. So I mean, I really liked. He's even got a few pieces on the bench as well. You know, we've looked at some of the contenders, Keith and Shane's team, and that, and sort of picked pieces at their bench. But you look down his, Brees Hall.
Yeah.
Again, he could be a top 5 wide running back. Mingo, he's going under the radar big time.
He is. I agree.
Really like Mingo,
but he's not. Let's not get overexcited with the fact of he's not. I don't expect him to be a game changer for his starters right now. I think he's a solid player, and he's seemingly going to do well. He's only going to grow with Bryce Young as well. But I don't like. Let's not get overexcited. I don't think he's somebody. He's not in a Brees Hall category, as you've just kind of put them 2 and 2 back to back.
Well, no, definitely not. I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying from a rookie perspective, going into this year, I like Mingo, and I don't think enough's been said about that. A-Chain, that one's that worries me. I wouldn't be trusting A-Chain. I know he said before I can just shove A-Chain in my flex or something like that, and everyone was a bit like, whoa, you know, this guy's a rookie and he's behind a few players. Obviously, this is in the Dolphins come out and
he's smaller and lighter than you are.
I don't know if they got someone if Wilson went down, but there's a few players ahead of him, definitely. Thielen's on his last legs, but he's a half-decent player for this year. Mooney I don't like, Paris Campbell I don't know too much about, and then the other two, but it's a great starting 11. I don't know if there's 11 players, but starting team. The worry I think for him is at QB. He probably has been sniffing after a few of the rookies. I'm assuming he's probably been after Richardson or one of yours, a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young, and he's setting up for a really young team to come through, and he probably is worried about that Tua and Wilson situation. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I like it. It's one of those I've said to him before, and I think like from a dynasty perspective, I do like the team. I don't think it's a winning for a redraft. I think he needs to make more moves to get away from the young lad rookie hype, which we all get suckered into, and more into this guy is a proven vet. He's fucking quality. You know what you're getting from him, and that's what this team lacks. A lot of it, pretty much all of it, is based around the ceiling play, not around what could be the floor. Bijan, in theory, the best product RB that's come out since Barkley. We just need to see it. We just haven't seen it. That's the only thing. Stevenson, I'm not sold on. I'm openly out on Stevenson. Not for me. CeeDee Lamb, yep, top 5, love it. I think he does impact redraft. I think he's a top player in redraft, so he's someone that I would be loving. Jalen Waddle, I think, can impact redraft as well. Don Kincaid, questions out for me, I don't know. And I don't trust rookie tight ends starting either. Like the history says they won't perform. Apparently they're playing him like a slot receiver. Again, we'll see. JSN, I believe him to be the best of the wide receiver draft class. However, that draft class there's no standout in that draft class. That was general consensus. So there's not like a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson. There isn't one of those in this draft class. So I think he's going to be a solid addition. I don't think he's going to take him over the edge. Having Brees Hall on your bench is hilarious. Like, you've got to be loving that. For me, I think I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, it's looking decent for Dynasty. I've got some young propositions, but I'm limited on picks. To be fair, actually, it's not that limited now thanks to the AP trade comedy. But I haven't got my first round next year, so I know I'm struggling from a QB perspective, kind of potentially going forward. I know I've got players that could be top assets, and I've definitely got some sellable assets as well. I'm putting this team in that category that we have a couple of others where he needs to go and try and win it now. Like, it's good enough. If Bijan's going to be a number 1 running back, like we think he should be this year, like he could be the 1 overall running back from fantasy perspective. With that in mind, you've got to go for it just on itself. Like, if you've got the best running back in fantasy and you've got Jalen Waddle and CeeDee Lamb on your bench, who are always solid. They're in the top 12 most years. Like, if I'm him, I'm going for it, and I'm probably just making a move. I'm probably making a big splash move if I'm him. I'm looking for either a big time player, like a proven stud, which is going to be difficult to get because it's going to be coming from one of the competing teams that he's competing against. Or I'm waiting a bit of time and I'm seeing how Richardson plays out, I'm seeing how Young plays out, I'm seeing how Stroud plays out, and then knowing they're rookies, but then I'm probably going in for them then before they get better and better and better, and then I'm trying to stash them away for next year as well, because I know I'm not going to get one going forward.
Yeah, it feels like this team, if I was him, I'd wait 4 or 5 weeks, see what's happening with the rookies on his team, and see what's happening elsewhere. If there's a team out there that looks half decent and they randomly lose 4 games in a row, they might just go, screw this, I'm not going to make playoffs, so let's get rid of Devontae Adams. And it may look stupid to go and get Devontae Adams for, some of these half decent players, but
that'd be amazing.
It'll send him over the edge, wouldn't it? So it's
even I know there's so much hype, and I try not to get involved in the hype, but there's so much hype about Dalton Kincaid right now. But if you could go out, we've already spoke about Tim, who's got 2 potentially the best tight ends in the league. Go out and get one of them. Send them trade. Go get Waller. He's a vet who could be the difference maker for you.
Straight swap.
Yeah. Like that sort of thing for me. That's the sort of stuff that I would be thinking if it's me. Like your window, especially with running backs. Like Luke asked me a while back because he was asking about teams and whatnot. I've gone the opposite because I don't trust running backs because I don't trust the longevity of running backs. He's put a lot of assets into Bijan being the man. Like, you got to commit to that now for me, and just go for it, because this is the window. Bijan is not going to be, facts prove it, he's not going to be the same guy in 4 years' time. It's an outlier if he is. Go for it now, and see if you can create a mini dynasty in from now.
Yeah, I mean, you could be looking at this team next year, being like, how has he got that team if Smith and Jigba pops off? Kincaid is the guy. Bijan is a 25-point-a-week guy. Breece Hall is top notch again. You could be looking at this team going like, that's ridiculous. But yeah, like you say, again, you could be looking at it going, it's nearly there, but not just. But it's an interesting team. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens week to week with that team.
For me, we joke about trade rapes and stuff, but that's I think one of the toughest ones. Like, I can't remember even exactly what it was, but that was he did well out of that. He did really well out of that, and I think that set him up after initially moving forward to get Hurts, I think, wasn't it?
It was Hurts moved to Phillips, didn't he? Yeah.
You look at the teams now, like you look at Phillips's team versus say this team, and they do feel quite a bit apart.
But I mean, Phillips has got Hurts set and forget for 10 years.
Like
you said, with Bijan, 4 years. Smith and Jigba might have probably 7 or 8. But
yeah, you could say that. I guess that just shows even more than go for it, Luke. Go for it.
Right, we're coming up to an hour and a half. This is taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Breakdowns.
Last team is
Final
yours.
Team.
I know, yeah, it takes a long time. So here we go. Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Gainwell, Christian Watson, Jahad Dotson, Kyle Pitts, Odell, Bryce Young. Moving to the bench, we've got CJ Stroud, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Jalen Warren, Devontae Parker, DJ Chark, Joshua Palmer, Alec Pierce, John Mechie, Luke Musgrave. Injury reserve, we've got Tyquan Thornton. And in the taxi, you've got Bigsby, Meyer, and Mims. And quite a lot of picks down there. 3 first rounds and a second. And you've got already a third to Matt, I think. Do you want to kick off with your thoughts, or do you want me to have a little dig into it? And
tear me down. You
want me to tell you a new one? Trevor Lawrence is locked in. He's got the padlocks there. He's never going to move, is he? Javonte, when you picked him up, I was like, Nah, he's done.
Yeah,
don't
boy.
don't like it. But I think everyone's been absolutely shocked that he's actually played any pre-season at all.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I would have put him near odds on being on PUP start of the season, out for the first 4 game weeks. And I think that's what a lot of people were thinking, which is why people were taking Perine probably so high. But
yeah.
Javonte he's going to be the starter. Like you said earlier, I don't know if they're going to play him as much as they did before. That's why Perine's probably going to get a little bit of the ball. But he's a good player. He's a good player.
He's not going. I'm open to the fact that he's not going to be the guy for at least 5-6 weeks, I think.
Yeah, he's going to have to take time to come into it.
Yeah.
And next year, he's great. Another great pick. I mean, you've done well drafting here. Gainwell again, I would have said, what? Nah, no point. But again, he's looking like RB1. So, great pickup. Christian Watson, I like. Wide receiver 1 at Green Bay, popped off late in the season, so he's a great player. Jahan Dotson was I think was he my sleeper or my dark horse? I think
you liked him. Yeah, you rated him.
Yeah, you mentioned Dubes and I mentioned Jahan Dotson as a bit of a sleeper going into the draft, and I was a bit disappointed I didn't get him. I think you picked him up probably round 6ish or something. Yeah, round 6, 7. So great pickup there. Kyle Pitts, obviously you probably took him a little bit higher than you would have if you weren't a Falcons fan, but I could see why you've taken
wearing his jersey right now.
There you go. And the worry for me with Pitts would be Ridder. Last year he's obviously had Mariota thrown to him, who was throwing him absolute garbage, and he was lucky to get as many catches as he did. The only concern, I guess, you've got London, you've got Pitts, but what else is there to take players away from those two? So it's a bit of a gamble, I think, considering the season he had last year was so bad, but he's young enough. And if Ridder doesn't work out, the Falcons will probably go and get Kyler Murray or something like that.
Yep.
Odell, I've never really not liked Odell. I mean, he was a Giants fan, even though he came from LSU. But he's an old guy. I can see why you've got him, because you're probably wanting to trade him, and you do love Odell.
Do love Odell.
And if I was one of the other teams, a Dan, a Keith, a Shugs, I would probably go and get him and stash him on the bench, because he's going to have a game week where he gets 18, 20 points. It's bound to happen. And that's probably going to be the game that you're going to sell him. And then you've got a couple of these rookie QBs, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, both starting, probably both question marks over them. Not much more to say than that, than to sort of just wait and see what they are after a few weeks.
Yeah.
Fournette and Hunt, obviously, without teams, so you can't really say a lot about that. There's been a lot of talk about Hunt going to teams and then not going and waiting to get paid by certain teams.
It's been a weird one, that, isn't it? It's been it's been frustrating.
Because didn't he go to the Saints and the Vikings in 2 days, and everyone was like, Kamara's out. So
he went Vikings first, and then he went Saints, and he on the same day then went from Saints. He got a call from the Colts and went over to the Colts. He'd also previously had visits at the Pats and somewhere else, can't remember. Obviously was rostered by Ollie initially, and then Ollie dropped him because he picked up Malik Willis, which really pissed me off. So I thought, right, fuck yeah, I'm going to take Hunt then. From all reports, from what I'm reading, Hunt is a case of he is holding out for the RB1 position and getting paid. So he's asking for both. And I don't know if he'll get it, if I'm honest. And it'll either be a case of he gets it and I'm fucking loving it and I'm selling him off, and the person who's buying it it's going to be the highest bidder of the person who wants that that a quality player coming to their team for not really too much, or he's going to get one of the two, and then it's kind of a bit of a he might go for a second round pick or whatever, and that's it. It's an interesting one. It's all dependent on situation, isn't it? That's the thing with Hunt.
It's a bit frustrating, I think, probably for you, that he hasn't signed before the start of the season, because it looked likely that he was going to go to the Saints or the Vikings, and then nothing seemed to happen. And then it looked like he was going to sort of potentially go to the Colts if Taylor had gone.
That was the dream. That was for me. That was the dream. If Taylor goes, and then Hunt gets signed, you'd see him getting signed for like a 2-year sort of contract, and that's the dream for me. In a team that will run the ball, you've got a rookie QB who's going to dump it off to him all the time. I really wanted that, because then I could see a lot of value for Hunt. Sadly, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that he's asking probably for a bit too much, because the Vikings go and get Gaskin?
They did, yeah. They did. Which pretty much you think that takes Vikings out of the equation, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they got Mattison, Ty Chandler, and then Gaskin in behind. And if they were going to go for Hunt, they would probably have stuck him behind Mattison, or even like competition with Mattison. But it's probably a little bit of a worry for you, but I'm sure he'll get signed eventually. It's just how long is he going to sit there, and how long are you going to waste a bench space on him? Same with Fournette, probably. That's
it. They're both of them are. I can't do anything really with them now. It's just a time thing. I picked up Leonard Fournette as part of the trade with Tim, and I picked up Hunt and burn a waiver wire for him. It's an upshot play. My team build is pretty much based around the future potential of guys that I believe in. So far, I've had that success with Javonte Williams. I've had that success with Caleb Gainwell. If we'd had this conversation 6 months ago, you'd have told me that was mental. With those viewpoints, but they've proven to work so far. Now I'm just kind of hoping for the same with one of or both Fournette and Hunt, and then I kind of sell them off to somebody who hasn't had to waste a roster spot on them in their team. I'm basically just that filler team at the moment.
Yeah, shrewd moves, and obviously a lot differently to sort of what Beef's doing with just gathering the picks and keeping the young players. You're trying to play the market a little bit probably. And going on players that have upside, moving down with Jaylen Warren, for example, he has definite upside there. People don't want to pay for upside; they want to pay for guaranteed.
Yeah.
Running back ones. That doesn't happen in Dynasty, unfortunately. You have to take a bit of a gamble, and going down the roster, it looks like you're taking the gamble on behalf of the rest of the team.
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
to get their picks.
I am. Yeah.
Which and again, it might not work, but it might work, and you could see yourself next year with a load of picks or a couple of vets that you can build around on some of these players. Again, moving down, I don't know too much about Devontae Parker. Obviously, I think you picked him up today.
So that was twofold. Tyreek Thornton, who I am a fan of, got put on IR. So it was a case of I could get him back in my team by dropping a player, picking him up, putting him on IR, and then picking up somebody else. And when I was doing a bit of research in the Patriots, obviously that's where Thornton's from, I kind of stumbled across Parker again, because he's kind of like this old vet that we've all kind of once been scorned by, and kind of not really been bothered by him, and it's not muchness. And I started reading about the camp reports and everything else. Parker's number one. He's ahead of Juju, and apparently he's had a really good camp and everything else. And I think he's picked up a knock literally today, so that may change things. But I was genuinely surprised about. Hold on a minute, and he's obviously recently been paid by Patriots as well. Are we missing a trick here? And that's basically why I've rostered him. It's another one where it could be huge upside or absolutely nothing. But there's potential that he is the wide receiver one for the Pats.
Yeah, it's the same play going down, isn't it? Of take the gamble because there's upside. I mean, someone like Joshua Palmer as well. I did him last year. I think I played him in a few games last year when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were out. Alec Pierce as well. You got Pittman there, but not much behind Pittman. So what's he, wide receiver 2? I'm assuming. Mechie's really interesting. We've obviously spoke about Mechie a lot of times, and people out there probably don't know who he is, because last year he was drafted and then was it leukemia? So obviously a serious injury.
Literally played no football at all, just obviously focusing on his recovery.
Yeah. So, but before that, he was stellar. If anyone watches the college games, he was above Jameson Williams, and Jameson Williams has come out and been hype.
Super hype.
He's just gone under the radar, but he's a player who could potentially, be worth something in a few weeks' time that if you wanted to, you could get value for you just sitting there.
Yeah, I have to say, Mechie is a guy for me that I love my upside, but he's somebody that I'm secretly hoping. I'm secretly hoping to hold him forever. I love his story. I've done so much. Like, I've looked into him so much. Like, I can see him starting in my flex position alongside Watson and Dotson for the next 8 years. Yeah, I really like him, but there's a bit of heart overhead bit there because I've done so much research into him, and the journey he's been on is quite fucking emotional, and I'm an emotional guy, so it's kind of like I believe in him in that regard. But yeah, I mean, we've discussed him at length. It's interesting because some people I know won't have really learned or know much about him because of what went down. So it's going to be a really interesting season. He's probably not going to start off brilliantly well. He's basically a rookie after all. And he's playing with a rookie QB as well, but he's a sort of player that I think kind of come the end of the season I'll be really disappointed if I don't start seeing those glimpses of like, fucking hell, that's what Mechie's about,
Yeah, he could definitely be one of those players next Sunday. Everyone's watching Red Zone, and it's he gets a super long 70-yard touchdown. Oh, who's this Mechie then? Let's go on waivers. Let's go pick him up. And you go, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Didn't realise he was there.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be a few of those players. The next one's really interesting. Luke Musgrave. Now, he's been hyped up massively by Green Bay. He's come out of nowhere. Like, seemingly, he's one of the top tight ends to come out of this class. The Kincaids, the Mayers, Musgrave seems to be near them, if not above them, in terms of his speed and his pass catching ability. Shrewd move. I think he got him off Tim, was it?
Yeah. I got him. Yeah, so got him from Tim. The trade was Rashad White and a 2024 second for then just upside plays in Tim's first because he obviously needed a running back, Musgrave and Fournette. I'm more than happy with the trade. We'll see what happens. I think at the time when I made the trade for Musgrave, actually the hype wasn't there at that time.
Yeah.
I actually had talks with a couple of other people where I got laughed out of the room basically by a couple of other GMs about me trying to ship off Musgrave, and I think they massively regret that now, which much to my delight. But yeah, I mean, I made a note pre-draft of all the rookie talents that came out was I wanted a piece of the tight end action because the tight ends from this year's draft, there was a good group of them where they were all solid. It wasn't a case of like there was this really good one and then everyone else was trash. It was a case of this 4 were really fucking good. And that was Mayer, Musgrave, Kincaid and Laporta. And they were the guys who were solid. So I knew I wanted a piece of that. Mayer was a guy who was actually renowned as the top tight end going up until kind of the draft. And then Kincaid took over and he's kind of tight end 1. And then it was Mayer and then Musgrave, Laporta kind of fighting out 3 and 4. So yeah, I'm really happy to have Musgrave. He's seemingly playing in the slot for Green Bay, just like Kincaid is. However, the big difference between those two teams is Jordan Love is so inexperienced. He's young. I'm expecting quite a lot of dump offs to Musgrave, whereas you're not going to get that with the Bills.
Yeah, no, definite. Great pickup. Obviously got Pitts there, so I'm assuming you'll be looking to move him on if he does have a couple of good games.
Yeah, he is available for trade. Musgrave is available for trade.
And then just looking at the taxi squad, you've got Tank Bisbee there, RB2 by all accounts in Jacksonville, and looking like he's going to be that sort of punch over the line, goal line back as well. So that could be fun. You got Mayer, so another tight end there that we've just discussed there. Again, he's been talked up quite big at Vegas as well. So it could be a really good player. Then Marvin Mims, who I think some people were after the other day when Judy went down. So Mims again could sort of roll into a wide receiver too, because I don't like Courtland Sutton. So really good young players in this team.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's built around. Basically, it's built around as you say, it's built around upside and it's built around second year breakouts. And I do feel relatively confident. I think I'm not shooting to win the league. I as soon as I took Trevor Lawrence first, I'd kind of made the decision that I wasn't going for this year. Everyone expected me to go for the Falcon and to go for Bijan, but I took Trevor and I was like, no, I want to build a dynasty. And then the second round pick came around. It was like, right, what do I do now? I've still got a choice. And I ended up going QB again with Bryce Young, and that was it. Then it was like, right, I'm building a dynasty was my aim. I'm not here to try and just win it 1 year. And I feel relatively confident with it. I feel like my core team of Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, Kyle Pitts, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud as a core team going into 2024, I'm really fucking happy with. And I've got 3 first round picks there to kind of. Well, if I get Caleb Williams, I'm taking Caleb Williams because I just sat on one of the other QBs with that. But then I've still got 2 other picks to go, a wide receiver or running back, and all of a sudden that team's, just like we were talking about kind of with Luke, it's looking terrifying, but it's also got some steady players, some really solid players on the bench that can still come on.
Yeah, I looking down it, and when we just gone through it, initially I thought it was a lot worse, but there's upside in there, and I know what you're like throughout the season with trades, that someone's going to come and sniffing for a couple of players with a bit of upside, and you'll probably get a good trade out of it. And if you look at the end of the season, you finish 8th or something, I don't think you'd be surprised.
No, not at all. I think for me it's about, as you've said a couple of times, for my team is about upside, and I'm more than happy to hold the bag and take the gamble on a player that, say, you don't want to store on your bench right now because it's just not quite worth it at this stage. But if the player then pops off, and I mean you're on record, you've come after Jaylen Warren, you've offered a second round pick, which is probably about the value. I've had a second round pick from one other and a third round pick from your brother, which is just comical as always. It's the sort of thing where second round pick is the right value, and I could chip him off now, but I'm holding simply for the case of, if Najee isn't the guy, then what happens? Then what can I sell him for?
Yeah. Did you worry though if Jaylen becomes RB1 that you might want to just stash him and keep him for next year and not want to trade him, because what sort of value are you going to get for someone going to give you a first with Jaylen Warren as RB1? It feels like a sort of Alexander Mattison type situation.
It'd be one of those, wouldn't it? Like if Warren starts popping up come end of season, and it's playoff times, and one of the top players has lost their running back, what are you willing to give me to get that assurance that you're probably going to get over the line? And if you're not wanting to give it, well, no worries. I've now got, at running back, I've now got the RB1 in Steelers who love to run the ball going into 2024.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's an interesting story going throughout the season about how players' values are going to change, because we know right now people like Warren and other people, Mechie that we've spoke about, are probably quite low. But watching Red Zone week in week out, and you start seeing these players pop off and get.
And there'll be misses,
15 points and stuff, and there's always misses.
My team could be, I'm fully aware that a lot of people who are think my team is on the floor, but I think that I personally feel that's through ignorance from the people. But on the flip side, if you told me Devonta Parker, DJ Chark, Josh Palmer, Mechie, and they all just end up not doing it, well, that could definitely happen as well.
But it doesn't matter for you. You got the picks there already, haven't you? So it doesn't.
Exactly. Oh. Well, that was a hell of a lengthy discussion, but I think it was worthwhile. Good bit of info for some of the people out there. If you're still listening, congratulations. I think you deserve a pat on the back.
Definitely. It's probably taken about a week to listen to this, so it's probably week 1 by now.
So Falcons have won their first game. So congratulations, rise up. And but I think we wanted to put this pod back out on there because we want to start moving it again. We want to get some guests back on. It's all a bit of fun ultimately. At the end of the day, it's all for a bit of banter, and we're just trying to add a bit more content really to give it a bit more vibe around the league. That's why we do it. That's why we put the time into it. And we hope you all enjoy.
Yes, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe if you can to this podcast. That's episode 4, and we'll see you again in episode 5. Thank you, everyone.
See you later.